Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or in some cases, good evening to some of our members here. Very good to see you on this morning's webinar. In a moment, I will go into some introductions of how this morning's going to run, and of course, we're going to introduce the delightful Jenna Dominique, who is going to be our speaker and presenter for this morning's webinar, how to pitch your value proposition and win more business. So whilst people are still joining, for those who have never met me before, I'm Drew. I'm one of the CPD advisors for the Standards Office, and I'm joined with my colleague Kirsty Walker in our marketing team, and some of our account managers as well, who will be joining if they haven't already joined, Richard and Rachel Ward as well, Richard Isaacs and Rachel Ward. So good to see everybody. And I'm up here in the northwest of England, quite a gloomy morning here. I think it's fair to say that summer has officially finished. We're now hitting the autumn winter months. I came down at the weekend and literally it was like a switch from really nice, glorious, hot weather. The following day came out, leaves are on the ground, and so yeah, I think it's fair to say that autumn has set in here up in the northwest of England. So I'm just literally, for those who know the northwest, literally just south of Manchester is where I'm based, and yeah, so looking forward to this morning. Please feel free to use the chat. I know we all know how these webinars run, but for those perhaps who are new to us, use the chat. Ping us a quick hi, where you're dialing in from this morning, and we're going to be using the chat throughout this morning's webinar for Q&As and a bit of interaction throughout. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, yes, use the chat to capture any of the questions you'd like to ask Dominique. We are recording, so please feel free to keep your cameras off and go on mute, so that we don't capture any background ambient noise. And we are recording, so this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. For any members who aren't able to join today, they can catch this webinar at a later date in their own time. So yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping. We will try and weave in some Q&A. We'll keep an eye on the chat when the questions come flowing in. If the moment is right, we'll handle questions as and when. But there is some dedicated time at the end where we will have a Q&A with Dominique. So that's the housekeeping, short, sweet, simple. And without further ado, let's hand over to our speaker this morning, which is the lovely Jenna Dominique, communication specialist, and has a background as a broadcast journalist. So I'll leave it there. Jenna's going to do, no doubt, her own introductions. Jenna, welcome. Good to see you, and a very good morning to you as well.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks so much for the intro, Drew. Really awesome to be here with you all, collaborating with you at the CPD Standards Office, and of course in partnership with the National Sales Conference as well. So really excited to see some of you in the chat as we go through. Keep your intros coming in. It'll be great to see where you're all dialing in from today. This is going to be a super interactive session, so I will be keeping an eye on the chat for any comments and questions that come through. So I will be sharing some slides. These are of course going to be part of the recording, so you'll have access to them afterwards as well. But just to kick off, before we really dive into the heart of what we're speaking about today, I've got two questions. So I'm hoping that you've got some sort of note-taking device in front of you, whether that's old school pen and paper or something that you can make some notes on. And I just want you to not think about these, overthink these questions too much, but I just want you to make some notes on sort of words and phrases that come to mind as I ask them. So the first one is, how does your product or service make someone's life better? So whether you're working within an organization and it's a particular product, maybe it's a tangible one, or more likely probably a service, how does it make someone's life better? Maybe it's your own product or service. I know there's going to be sort of different industries that are going to be represented as part of this as well. But what is it about your service? What is it about your product? Maybe you've launched a new product recently and you want to focus on that for today. That's absolutely fine. So how does it make someone's life better? And while you're doing that, just to reiterate, ask any questions, pop any comments into the chat as we go along. As I said, this will be quite an interactive session today as well. So how does your product or service make someone's life better? And I should say, you don't have to put this into the chat, but when I throw questions out there, if you want to, more than happy for you to as well. And I can kind of bounce off of that. But for now, hopefully you've made some notes. Again, it's going to be quite quick fire. Don't overthink it too much because you've got a second question coming next as well. So here we go. Next question beyond this one is, how is your product or service different to other solutions? So what words, phrases, features, benefits, products are coming up for you that makes you different and unique from other solutions that are out there? What is it that makes you stand out? Now, for some of you, this would be really easy. Maybe it's something that you think about on a regular basis. For others, maybe think outside the box a little bit. Is there anything that we haven't touched on or you haven't thought about that you think, actually, this is a real differentiator for us from other solutions? And while you're doing that for the second question, a very brief introduction and a bit of my background as well. So as Drew mentioned, I started my real career as a broadcast journalist. I actually started in hospital radio, went in to do some radio and television work. And that's really where I say I found my passion for public speaking, which hopefully some of you share that passion with me on the call. Others might not, but that's really why I do what I do. And my journey has been a really phenomenal one, actually. It's led me to work a lot with startups and scale-up businesses, especially in the pitching space. And that translates really nicely to sales teams in terms of how you pitch not only your value proposition, which is what we're talking about today, but how you pitch yourself, how you build your confidence and be that compelling person in front of your customers. So that's a little bit about me. I can talk about it far too much. In terms of where I'm based, I'm East London, Docklands. So anyone that's nearby, hello. And hopefully that's given you some time to answer those two questions. So the focus there was really on what is it that makes you different? And then prior to that, how does it make someone's life better? So this session really, as I said, is all about pitching your value proposition. But before we dive into that, we need to know that you've got a powerful value proposition in the first place, because it's all well and good being able to pitch amazingly, but you want to make sure that you're enticing the right customers and enticing lots of, hopefully, clients and customers to you at the same time. Now, I mentioned there in my brief intro, I do work a lot with startups and scale-up businesses as well as corporate teams, but there's a lot of common errors that come up, especially around articulating your value proposition. And we're going to dive into those errors and how to avoid them very shortly. But I'm kind of going to backtrack a little bit because we need to know actually what is a value proposition. And this is where I am going to throw it out to you. So feel free to pop it into the chat. If I said to you, how would you define a value proposition? What does it mean to have a value proposition? There's no real right or wrong here. I'll give you a bit of an example afterwards, but how would you describe a value proposition? What even is a value proposition? And it's often something that certainly when people are starting out in business, for those startup companies that I work with, can get quite confusing as you've gone on in your journey within your organizations or for yourselves. Then it might become a little bit clearer. But I'm interested to hear from you. What words come up when you have to describe what a value proposition is? Because it's a very jargon heavy word sometimes. You think, yeah, I know what my value proposition is, but actually what are you describing and what is that as well? Kelly's straight in there. Your unique selling point. That's going to come up a lot today for sure. What sets your business aside from the rest? Melvin, yeah, it's a tangible benefit, some sort of improvement. So we've got that uniqueness in there, that differentiator. And then you've got those benefits, those improvements. What do people gain from working with our business? Yep. Steve, what makes our offering or company attractive to customers or prospects? So there's a lot of similarities here. And there's a definition that I tend to use quite a bit, which is this one. And it actually summarizes what most of you have said really nicely. So the unique value that your product or service brings to your customer. So bear this in mind. And that's the reason why we had those first two questions at the start of this session, because it's very much focused on your customer and the unique value that your product or service gives. Often when I work with companies, there's a bit of a confusion around the actual purpose of a value proposition. It's very much customer centric. It's not your mission statement. It's not your vision statement. It's very much aligned with what your customer and the value that they're going to get from you. So really awesome to kick that off. And then going back a little bit further before we actually dive in to the pitching side is then, what does value mean? So what actually is value for your customer? And I'll be interested to know, and if you imagine that we're in a room together and we've got a load of post-it notes on the page, and you'll be writing these in, I want to know what value is important to your customer. So what is value to your customer? What do they care about is probably a better question to put around it. So if you take one of your customers, if you take the majority of your customers, what is it they really care about? So what is the value that they see in your business? And just pop some words into the chat there of what that looks like. Example, it might be that it's the experience they get with you. Another example might be that it's more that you're cost effective and maybe you're a bit more of an efficient solution to others as well. What do they really care about? So why are they even doing business with you in the first place? Melvin, you said quality, consistency, lasting impact. So you know that your clients are after high quality. So maybe for that, they're going to pay a higher price, but they're going to get high quality. Vic, value for money, consistent service, industry experts, absolutely. Experience is coming up, motivational learning, accountability, these are great. So you know what your clients really value. And it might be that some value some differences, and that can be for different products that you're offering, but just on a generic level is just to get you to thinking about it. So here are some examples. If we were in a room together, maybe this is what the slide would look like, or what the whiteboard would look like as well. So quality came up. Maybe it's cost effective. Joy, you've just mentioned that as well. Maybe it's because you're particularly unique in some way. There's innovation or creativity there. Maybe it's that you offer a sustainable solution, and sustainability is important for your clients. There's some sort of reputation boost working with you, and there's going to be some sort of benefits that they get from that as well. So this is really a starter for 10 to think about. We know what our value proposition is, but we need to know actually what do our customers care about to be able to align that value proposition with them. And that's really part of this session, is how do you tailor and target your customers better in a way that you might not already be doing. You might be doing some awesome stuff, but there's different things and areas that you might just want to fill in the gaps and actually try some new techniques that might just see your success going even more and winning even more business as well. So let's go back to those errors that I mentioned. We've touched on the value proposition and value, what that really means, but there are 3 key errors other than confusing the purpose of a value proposition. Once again, it's customer centric. It's very much about the value and the unique value. That word unique is really key to put in there. But what else do I see in terms of the errors that people come up against? One is that it's often quite confusing. So keeping it really simple, and we'll come onto this in more detail shortly as well, but keeping your value proposition as simple as possible, do what it says on the tin, makes a lot of sense. There's so many examples that I've got of confusing value propositions where you might read something or you might hear something from someone in the sales team, and the last thing you want is for someone to say, so what is it that you do then? Or can you just break that down for me? You want them to have that penny drop moment of, right, I get it. So avoiding it being confusing. We'll come on to tips on how to avoid and change these up in a moment. The next error that I see quite a lot is it being generic. So yes, this can work to an extent to maybe describe sort of overall what the business does, but the more specific you can be, the more powerful it's going to really connect with your customers, especially if you can really pinpoint what value they care about and what outcome they might want to get. So get quite specific. If you're thinking that yours are quite generic, then there's a risk that, well, everyone can do that. There's a lot of competitors out there doing the same thing. Really make sure that specific USP is in there as well. And then finally, the errors that I see is that it's a little bit flat. And what I mean by flat is either that the language either doesn't resonate, and flat could be that it's actually links to the confusing point. Maybe you're using jargon that customers just don't quite relate to or resonate with. Flat can also mean when you're actually delivering the value proposition, when you're giving someone an overview of what it is the business does and what your service does, that actually it's not delivered in that compelling way. So there's 2 sides to this: the language that you're using, keeping it simple, connecting with that first error there, but also how you're articulating it when you get into that pitch mode. and being as compelling as possible, bringing your personality across, showing your confidence. All of that really resonates with that as well. So we've got an activity to do, and hopefully run with me on this. And this is one that you can decide if you want to put some stuff into the chat, you can. But probably the next activity we do will be one that I invite you to share. For now, use your paper and pen or your technological devices that you're using to make your notes. And you've got 3 steps or 3 statements that I want you to complete the sentences for. And this will link into sort of quite a simple statement that we can use for the rest of the session. So link into what you mentioned about the value that your customer cares about. Think about the one key thing they care most about. So we're going to focus on one key thing here. So finish this sentence. My customer cares most about what? Now, that could be a short sentence that carries that on, or it could just be one word. So out of all the values, all the things that you've mentioned already in the chat from that earlier question, try to think of what is it they care most about? Why is it they coming back to you? What do they care about? And it's quite a fast-paced session. So this is me trying to get you not to overthink it, because actually when we stop and think too much, we overthink it sometimes, and just go with what comes to mind. Next step, or your next sentence to complete. We deliver value through what? Now, this could be, and again, we don't need to overcomplicate this. It can be quite simple. So we deliver value through, maybe it's experiences, a platform. Maybe it's through some one-to-one consulting or coaching. Maybe it's through some technology that's quite unique as well. So thinking about that. And yeah, as I said, if you want to pop these into the chat, please do. And I can use those as some examples as we go through. So my customer cares about what? We deliver value through what? Carly, really easy one there. CPD accredited 1-day in-person conference, which I should say at this moment, I'm very excited to be at in November. So please do put the date in your diary. 23rd of November, the National Sales Conference is coming up. So do mention that. Melvin, a way forward that impact, efficiency, and quality. So your customer cares most about that. So that impact, the efficiency, the quality. So maybe it's the fast-paced nature of what you do, and it's the quality of what you do, I'd say, are probably the things they care most about. And then how do you deliver that value? So we deliver that through exciting experiences, tailored programs, 1-day conferences, expert reports. There you go. Just as you said it there as well. Okay. And number 3, we stand out because. How is it that you stand out? So again, linking all the way back to that first question, one of the first questions that I asked, how is it that you stand out? We stand out because it could be around your team, the expertise that you have. It might be the technology that you've got behind you, the network that you're bringing, the speakers that you have, whatever it is that you have as a unique selling point. And someone mentioned that really early on today when describing that value proposition. What is it that makes you stand out? So thinking about the end of those sentences will lead nicely into our next activity, where you bring it all together. And this might be a template that you've already used. But again, if you've got a particular product that you're launching, or if you've got a particular service that's quite new, then you can play around with this sentence to make that work. And I should add as well, your value proposition, it can and it will change. You will find that you'll have different versions for different types of customers, for example, for different products that you use. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all. Yes, you might have this generic approach, but actually, as you think about, well, there's 3 key things that my customer cares about. So you might want to think about, what do those statements look like individually? Or it might be that we've got this new product and we need to start thinking about the value proposition for that particular one as well. Okay, so hopefully, and I'm just going to ask for a thumbs up, either on a reaction or in the chat, to say that we're ready to move on. You've done step 1, step 2, step 3, or if you're on video, you can give me a thumbs up there as well. Perfect. Seeing some coming through. Brilliant. Let's move on nice and swiftly. If you're still going with it, that's fine. Just kind of have me in the background. But this is the bit that we do want to move on to as well. So this is the Steve Blank template that you have probably seen before. But it works really nicely, especially for the purposes of this type of webinar, where we really want to get a statement quite quickly. But it forces you to avoid those errors that we spoke about. It forces you to be simple. It forces you to actually be quite compelling because of the simplicity of it as well. And it forces you to get quite specific in terms of the areas that you want to cover in these blanks that you're going to fill out. Steve Blank is a US entrepreneur, for those that might not have heard of him, but this is really a template that's become pretty famous and pretty popular for especially startups as a starting point, but certainly growing organizations to really help land what it is that they do. So start to bring this all together. So you've got the X, the Y, the Z to fill in. And I use this first one as the who, the what, and the what. So we're going with that approach. So we help who do what so that they can what, for want of a better word to use there. And you've got another one below that that might resonate more. So these are two different options of this template that you can use, because it just might help land a little bit better. So we provide what for who so that they can what. So you've got who, what, and then you've got a what, who, what, just to make it confusing and go against everything that I've just been saying to keep things nice and simple. But hopefully that makes sense. And I really, again, don't overthink it too much. Let's just start to write some things down. As you're doing that, I'm going to give you some examples that might help land as well. So the example that I'm going to use is a technology platform that is really focused on students at universities around their study skills. And this is sort of, that's their client base. So they partner with the universities, but actually the end beneficiary is mainly the students, for example. So if I was going with the first one, it might be that you get to the heart of who's the end beneficiary of your service. So we help students get better grades so that they can enjoy their university experience more, as a really simple example. It might be, I flip that around to say, we provide a powerful study skills platform for universities so that their students can achieve better grades. So you can see the difference there. You know, we provide what is where you can get quite specific with the products that you're doing, whereas the first one is a little bit more generic, you'll see there as well. But once you've got one of those statements ready, let's play around with it. Pop it into the chat. Again, no right or wrong answer here, but we can get some feedback on those as well. So you're starting to think, right, is this value proposition, does it land? And is it as powerful as it can be? Is it simple? Is it specific? And is it compelling? And by that, we don't need to use lots of jargon. We want to make sure that it means that someone hears it and they get it. So for the example that I gave, powerful study skills platform. So we know it's an online platform focused on helping students study skills. It's for universities. That's who we're targeting. And the byproduct of that is so that their students get better grades. That's the outcome that they want. So pop those into the chat as if you want to, I should say. There's no pressure if you don't want to, but there's really no right or wrong. This is a nice little playground to work around this and just put some phrases into practice and see what might land, and we can get some thoughts and feedback from others with their reactions as well. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then we'll come through. While you are doing that, I'm just going to pop up into the chat just to see if I've missed any questions coming through. But I think we're all good at the moment. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all caught up to date on that, Jenna, with questions and things. So I'll jump in if there's anything that we perhaps missed out there.
We've got two eyes on it, so we're good.
I've just got a quick question, Jenna, whilst people are kind of putting the things into the chat here. Does the how play any part in our value proposition? I know we've covered like the what, the why. But does the how kind of come into it at this stage?
It can, but it doesn't have to, because when the hook is really what's going to get someone's appetite engaged, like what's going to make them think, I need that. The how, it's almost when I talk about in pitch mode, when people go for pitches, you often talk about the problem and the solution. So we help students, for example, get better grades. The problem is students aren't getting good enough grades, or they're struggling with their studies, to give the example that I gave earlier. So the outcome is what I'm interested in as a university. How is then comes later. So you can, within the value proposition, if that's one of your unique selling points, you could do, but it doesn't have to be in there. And actually, it almost takes away from the impact that you could have within that statement.
Yeah, of course.
The second one, and the second example where you say we provide what for who, is a bit of an example where you could say if it's a platform, if it's we provide unique experiences, we provide powerful speakers to allow you to do this. That kind of leans into that how and sort of funnel you're going into, but you don't want to give too much information to it.
Sure.
You want to get them into it. A really great question. All right, let's look at some of the ones that are coming through. So Melvin, you came in first. So we provide quality insights for life sciences industry so they can save lives. So what I'd say with that, Melvin, really simple. So quality insights So I'm expecting this to be sort of data and data related. I might have got that wrong, but that's my interpretation. So the life sciences industry, really specific, ticking that box as well, so that they can save lives. So that gives me enough of a almost an interest to say, I'd like to find out more about this. And actually, to the point that Drew made there, that's where I almost want to have a call to be like, well, how do you do it? So that's what you're trying to get at, that anticipation there as well. Wendy, I think I saw yours come up. We provide short course training for customers so they can get better productivity. I like that because I can tell that it's so short course training, so it means it's going to be probably quite quick. The outcome is that you get better productivity. I wonder if you could be a bit more specific with that as well. So are there types of customers that you target? And if you are reaching out to a certain industry, if you are doing some comms to a specific audience, for example, then knowing who's in that audience and maybe tailoring it to that could work even better. So customers can be quite generic. Can it be even more specific with what type of customers that is? Let's go down to Vic. We provide business support for people so that they can focus on doing what they do best. Brilliant. And then Vic, you can probably then tailor and go off onto a tangent beyond that as well and go a little bit further. So business support for people so they can focus on what they do best. Is that business support for growing organizations, ambitious business owners? Is it freelancers? Again, I'm trying to encourage that specificity, and you might have different, I said that really slowly, that word, because it's quite a hard word to say, trying to get quite specific. And that's what we're really focusing on, because then it relates to that person. So this could be in those targeted communications. If you know who that audience is going to be, great, let's get quite specific with that. Focus on doing what they do best. I quite like that. You know, it's generic, but it relates to everyone to say, actually, we don't want to be in the day-to-day admin side and the business support side. We want to be out there doing what we are being paid to do, or what we enjoy doing as well. Peter helps senior executives develop their behavior so they can be more effective. So again, that's where that specific element is there. It's senior executives. So I know who you're targeting. I know you're focusing on in terms of behavior. So develop their behavior. Again, play around with what else that could be. Enhance is there a particular behavior that they change? Is it their mindset that they need to change, or is it something a bit more specific there, so that they can be more effective, so they can better support their team, so they can lead better businesses? There just might be something that's a little bit more compelling that might relate there as well. Steve, we provide leaders and sales teams with skills, tools, and tips so they can perform better and win more business. Again, the specific side is there. Leaders and sales teams, boom, two really clear customers. And actually, that's something that if you do find you have more than one customer base, then pop that in there, especially if it relates to that element and that sort of product and service that you're providing. Skills, tools, and tips. Again, there's 3 things there, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. So that works really nicely. And they can perform better and win more business. Perfect. Just like we're doing today with the value proposition workshop. So really nice. Again, it's specific. It's simple, even though there's actually quite a lot packed into there, and it's compelling because we want to find out more. I'm going to come back to some of these as well, because I'm conscious of time and I want to get on into sort of pitch mode, but this is all about building up to that value, the valuable and powerful value proposition statements. And this is a takeaway that you can use and keep coming back to, and try to get other people's thoughts on it as well. So what you've got now is a powerful value proposition that gets you in the door. So this is that lead up to it, whether it's email communications, whether it's particular posts that you're doing, articles, whatever it is that you want to slot this value proposition in. It might be at the front of your web page, might be on some of your resources. That's the enticing part. You've got them interested. Now they want to have a chat with you. And that's where the pitch mode comes in. Up to now, it's sort of gauging their interest and getting them on that phone call in the first place. So now we're leading into that pitch part. So we need to be thinking about a lot of different things, because it's all well and good having this powerful value proposition, but then if the pitch doesn't land in a way that then connects and relates to your customer, there's that wasted opportunity. That business might not then come. So we're going in stages here. And this is that middle stage to pitch well, so that then you can lead to that business as well. So preparation naturally comes in. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. One of the older adages that we've probably heard as well, but it does ring true, especially for that pitch. And it might be that you're incredibly busy. You've got a meeting coming up. You haven't had much time to do much prep for it. So I'm hoping these are going to be some quite quick tools that you can use when you've got those meetings in the diary, when you've got those phone calls planned to have those initial conversations with your customers. So thinking about who your customers are is a really good starting point. And I've got a table here that might bring that to life and give you something to work with. Before you get to this stage, do try to get a gauge of who your client is just on the surface. What organization are they part of? What role do they play? Have you checked out their LinkedIn? What type of person do they come across as? Because that's going to help give you a little bit more of an insight. And then you can answer these questions. So this table is quite useful for kind of, I guess, rating, for want of a better word there, rating your clients in terms of what knowledge level do they have about your product or about your industry already. Is it quite high? So do they know quite a lot about, it might be a learning management system. And I'll give you an example, because I was actually in the market for a learning management system not so long ago. I didn't think I needed one, but there was one particular feature that I really needed to have as part of my business and the direction it was going in. But I didn't need the all singing, all dancing, bells and whistles features that a lot of LMS systems come with. So for me, the value for this LMS system that I needed, it needed to be quite simple, easy to use. And because I didn't need all the other features, it needed to be quite cost effective. So going back to that values post-it notes, it would be cost and it would be ease of use that it matters to me. Whereas someone else with a higher budget, a bigger team, it might actually mean that the cost isn't necessarily the main factor. For them, it's something that's quite innovative and unique for their teams. And maybe it is all the bells and whistles, creative features that they've got there. So try to have a bit of an overview of what your client's value really is before you dive into this table. And when you do get here, thinking about the knowledge, I had quite high knowledge of the learning management systems. I'd made it quite clear when I filled out a form to get onto a sales call with these people that I've done a lot of research. I think you tick the box of what I need, but I want to go through what that pricing might look like and go from there. So they might have assessed me as quite high knowledge. It might be that they might have looked at my form, and this is something to think about. Maybe you do get people to fill out a survey or a form before you jump on a call with them, so that you can gauge a bit more information and tailor the conversation, or to tailor the approach that you're going to have. Some of you might be doing that. Feel free to put a thumbs up or down if not in the chat, but that might be something to think about, because it gives you a bit more inside information and you can then tailor your approach a little bit better. If you don't, then there's some questions that you can ask at the start of those conversations as well. Or it might be that you don't anticipate that they know much at all about the organization or about what you do and the technology behind it. It might be that they need a bit more information and it's a bit of a slow burner to educate them on what it is that you can offer them as well. So that's the knowledge column. The decisiveness column is really related to how quickly they want to implement something, or how quickly they want to make a decision whether to work with you or not, but also what level of seniority they are. Do they have that final decision, or do you need to bring other people in? Do they need someone else to sign it off if they agree to work with you as well? And I've put sort of the today, next week, next year as a loose way of saying, right, I've got a high level of decisiveness here. We want to act quickly. I'm ready to commit today. That's sort of a fast mover. If it's sort of next year, and not literally next year, but it's someone that's that I'm just putting the feelers out there. This is a project we're starting to work on, something we're starting to think about as a team. For the learning side, for example, we want to do something a bit different. So we're not in a rush, but we'd just like to know what our options are. So that's someone that might be that sort of next year decisiveness. The middle ground is somewhere in between. And then the personality is a little bit harder to judge, especially before you jump on the call with them. But that's why places like LinkedIn are really useful. You might be able to check them out in terms of social media, their websites, their about me pages, just so you can get a feel for the type of person that they are. And I've put here open, middle, and closed. So if they've got quite an open personality, if they come across as someone that might be quite personable, quite chatty, you can probably gauge that quite early on in your call with them or in your meeting. How open are they? How, responsive are they to questions? Or they might be quite closed, and you might get the impression that actually this is someone that just doesn't want to beat around the bush. They just want to get to the point, and therefore your approach will change with that. So hopefully this is a fairly simple tool, and I've got some examples to give you to bring this to life. If you rate someone as having high knowledge of what you do, their decisiveness is pretty quickly, they are today decisiveness, they're ready to go, and they've got quite an open personality, then your approach is going to be, you want to be really clear and to the point. Maybe there's some friendly chat in there because of their open personality, but you want to close quite quickly. If they're in the market to make a decision soon on whether to work with you and bring you in, then you want to be able to have all of the information ready that they might ask to be able to make that decision. So it's going to be quite fast paced. There's going to be some friendly chat in there, and it's going to be really clear and fairly to the point. On the other side, if someone's relatively little knowledge about what you do, they're not really going to make a decision today, it's going to be further down the line, they're a bit of a closed off personality, then you're going to go on a journey with them. This is going to be a bit more of a slow burner. So you might need to go back to basics and take a more educational approach. This is what we do. This is why we do it. These are the types of customers that we work with, and this is the impact they've had. There might be some minimal banter. Hopefully, you know what I mean by that. So there might not be as much of that friendly chat going on because they're a bit more of a closed personality. And that's okay. If that's that type of person, you know, don't feel like you have to try to get them out of their shell. They might not want that. So try to read the room as much as you can. But then it's your responsibility to try to bring in a bit of a sense of urgency. So if you can do that well and have your approach quite tailored to them, then you can almost say, look, if we started on this in the next couple of weeks, or if we started on this before Christmas, this is actually where your team could be by the new year. And then from there, we can work on X, Y, and Z. So they might be sort of feeling the options, but you can bring in a bit of a sense of urgency just to give them a bit of an insight into how you could impact them. And of course, that changes, depends on how you rate them, but that's just quite a nice, useful way of being able to properly approach your pitches in the best way possible, but also make it as tailored and targeted as possible. You're going to have your own technique and your own, I guess, approach that works best for you, but it's for you to be able to adapt to the other person that you're speaking to. And I'll give you an example of the learning management system journey that I went on. You know, I'm quite open. I like a chat. You know, I'll speak to someone about the weather and where they live and what they're doing and all of that. I like to build a bit of a rapport with people, even when I'm the one that's being sold to. But actually, what I found with one particular organization that I spoke to was that they were quite quick to get to the point. I think they'd read the form that I'd filled out that, you know, I'm looking to move quite quickly on this. So they missed out that initial, you know, let's have a feel for what Jenna is like, and does she want to have a bit of a chat, or do we go straight to the point? So they went straight to the point, which fair enough. They had sort of guessed or assumed from my form that I wanted to move quite quickly, which I did, but I'm still quite open and quite, you know, keen to make a connection with someone that I'm speaking to. At the same time, there was another company that told me it would take to call number 4 to work out what the price was for the LMS system that I'd be working on. And that for me was just too long-winded. And I made that very clear to say, I just need a ballpark figure. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of my time. And they took me through the process. You know, at this point, call number 4, which will happen in about 10 days' time, that's when you'll get the price. And that for me just didn't work. So it's going to be different for different people. And that's why this table just gives you a bit of an insight to say, right, knowledge, decisiveness, personality, let's have a think and see how your approach might go down. Just going to pause there for a moment just to take that in before we go on to the final tool that I want to share, and then we'll go into questions as well. Okay, and I'll come back to some of the value proposition statements if we've got time at the end, just to give some feedback. So once you've done your prep, once you've got your approach, you've had to think about what that person is like, we then get into the star pitching mode. Now, this, funnily enough, I'm going to be talking about in much more detail at the National Sales Conference in November. But I do want to bring it in here today just to give you a bit of an insight into that next step. So what you've done, you've captured their attention with a really powerful value proposition statement on your website, whether that's in your sales communications, whether that's initial chat with them. You've then got them into that, you've gone into that pitch mode, you've done your preparation, you've got a feel for how you're going to target this customer, you've done your research, great. Once you're in that call, and depending on how it's going, this STAR model is all about being ready to pivot, because you might have a really clear picture of who this client is and what they are like, but you never know what's going to come up in the conversation. Be prepared for those curveball questions, be prepared for them to be very different to how you think they might be. And this STAR approach just keeps you reminding you the approach that you want to be taking throughout. Simplicity comes up a lot. So keeping it simple, trying to almost stop in certain places, ask some questions. Are they still following along with what you're saying? Being really transparent. Now, this is an interesting one. And the reason why I put this in this model is because that goes a long way sometimes, to be really clear and be really open with what it is that you offer. The learning management system I ended up going with was very different to the one that I thought I would, but they were so clear and transparent with this is the cost, but if you took this away, this is what we could do for you. It's not going to be as strong, it's not going to be as intuitive, but we can do the feature that you need, and we're prepared to sort of, change that up and make that available for you. And it was that honesty and transparency that connected with me. And then the bottom two, this is this sort of pivot mode, being agile and being responsive. So being ready to change tact if it's not going quite the way you wanted to, having some questions up your sleeve that might help to get it back on track, and also responding to them. Sometimes we ask a question and we anticipate what the answer is going to be, and we don't really listen to what the other person's saying there. So being responsive and thinking, actually, this is a slightly different need than I thought. You've got a bigger team than I thought you had, or you wanted to do more in-person stuff that's going to be slightly different to what we originally spoke about. So being able to pivot and just having that opportunity not to slow down the process, but to keep that momentum going with your sales and with those conversations, so that you can lead, hopefully, to that business and that closing that sale really quickly. So hopefully that makes sense. As I said, you're going to get these slides afterwards with the recordings. You can go back to this, but that step process is all gearing up to everything we've spoken about so far, is really gearing up to that winning more business and getting more clients on board, connected to your value proposition, pitching it in a way that's compelling and that really resonates with them, that's tailored, and then that hopefully leads to some success there. So this is really what we're looking at. You've got a powerful value proposition, a pitch approach that lands, but one that you can pivot and change depending on how the conversation's going. And ideally that will then lead to more business, lead to more sales that go with that as well. Now, of course, we know it's not as simple as that, but those tools and techniques will hopefully be some that you can have in your back pocket, ready to go at the same time. So I'm going to just give a bit of a summary of actions. So I'm really keen to make sure that everyone's got at least one action or takeaway to go with them. And please do feel free to pop into the chat what your action's going to be off the back of today's session, just so you can move that forward a little bit. Some of this stuff you're probably already doing, but it might be that actually I need to revisit my customer personas, or I need to revisit our competitors and what they're doing, and how is it that we're still maintaining a bit of a unique selling point there. It might be something around your value proposition statements. I want to test that out with the team and actually get them to do it and come back to me and see if we're aligned on that as well. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and I want you to think about that one key action that you're going to take off the back of today while I go through some of those takeaways and what they might be. So we started at the beginning with those two key questions. So know your customer and know your competitors. Revisit those questions as often as you want to, put it out to your team, see what they come up with. There might be some different outcomes that you haven't thought about, and you might want to implement that as you're building out your value proposition as well. Get really clear on your USP, get really clear on what makes you unique, and keep it really simple, and test out those value proposition statements with teams, with others, might even be with customers that you've got a really good relationship with, to see if it lands as well. Depends on the business that you're in and the relationship that you've got with them. And then finally, some prep for your pitches. Don't miss out that opportunity, even if it's just taking 5-10 minutes before a call to go through that table and get a rough idea. This is what I anticipate. Let's have a look on LinkedIn. Let's just see what they've filled out, if there is a form that they're filling out, to give you some more information before the call. That just might give you a little bit more confidence going into it, but always be ready to pivot. Yes, we can anticipate certain things, but we've got that STAR model to be able to pivot as we go through as well. So I'm going to pause there. Very happy to connect, but I'm going to leave that open. I clicked next too quickly because I'm keen to go to any questions that you might have that we can wrap up the session with. And Drew, please let me know if I've missed any, or if you've got any questions that have coming up your side as well.
Excellent, brilliant. Thank you, Jenna. And I think one of the things for me that really resonates is just keep it simple. It's that simplicity. I think sometimes we over egg the omelette sometimes, and we get ourselves tied in knots. But that simplicity and that focus of being able to put it into the models that you've demonstrated today, Jenna, has really enticed some really good focus from the chat. You can see in the chat that people have really kind of honed in on specifics that lies within their value proposition. So really good stuff, and thank you for I know we shared some examples in the chat. We perhaps didn't get through all of them, but I think the post-it notes at the beginning, there's some commonality between some of the value propositions that you've shared and connecting to some of those post-it notes in the earlier slides. So thank you for that. It is question time, guys. So yes, use the chat. Feel free to come off mute if you want to. Put your cameras on, more than welcome to do so. Just again, for those who perhaps joined a little bit late, we are recording the session. So if you want to keep your cameras off and use the chat, it's entirely up to you. But please feel free to ping your questions in either way. So let's go to the... Go on,
I was just going to
Jenna.
say, while you're popping the questions in there, I did just want to pick out a couple of the other statements that came through, because it's really interesting. Nikki, you've put one here, super, talking about that simplicity. I de-stress directors to make burnout a thing of the past. So it's almost using that template, but you can pick and choose what works for you in that template as well. So de-stress directors, that's what you do. That's for who, is so that to make burnout a thing of the past. So that's a really simple one that I just wanted to highlight there as well. So really great to see that, and do play around with it, because it's not a one size fits all. I think often when I speak to people, they think, you know, we've got a value proposition statement, it works for everyone. It doesn't have to. You will find that if you've got different customer segments, then different approaches are going to relate to different people as well. As I'm just said, pitching to the management team at university, great. So use this to be able to help in your next meetings that are coming up at the same time as well. So there's some really good examples there in the chat that you can look at and maybe use for your own value proposition statements that really help as well.
Excellent. Any questions from anybody? The chat's kind of paused for a moment, but yeah, please feel free to come off mute. We have got about 12 minutes so left of this session to answer any questions.
While you're doing that, again, I'm just going to go through the ones that I haven't seen already, because I think some of those people are still on the call, which is great. Joy, so innovative professional health providers online platform, improve healthcare understanding with powerful education, mental health client assessment understanding. So there's a lot going on there. I almost want to turn that into a statement that, you know, we provide a professional health platform for clients, you know, and where you've got this sort of mental health client assessment as well. There's probably different value propositions that you can have within that. So we provide a dedicated professional health platform to understand or improve healthcare understanding for clients with A, B, and C. So with those statements, almost try to weave those together. So you've got this nice compelling narrative that goes through it, rather than the standalone statements there. But there's a lot in there that you can unpack. It might be that you've got a couple of different versions that could help as well. Melvin, I'm going to come to your question next before I go to any others, any of the other statements. You've been working on this for your startup business with a coach. This has helped me far more. Good to know, Melvin. I'm very pleased. What I take away is have adaptable USP focused to clients or venture capitalists, depending on who you're pitching to, or would you suggest other approaches? Yeah, so it depends, I guess, Melvin, it depends on the type of business that you're running. So when you say venture capitalists, I'm assuming you're going for funding for your startup, and then you've obviously got your client base as well. So you would have two very different approaches to your overall pitch. So your value proposition is one thing. Your value proposition is very much customer centric. So that would be, what is it that you deliver for your clients or for your customers? The pitch approach you'll have to VCs or investors will be very different. You can still encompass that value proposition maybe in your title slide, for example. We help X do Y by this, because that's quite a nice starting point. But when you're going after the VCs, they're going to want to know, right, what's the problem you're solving? Tell us your solution in a really high level way, maybe a bit around how it works. And then you'll go into the market, competitors. This is sort of going off on a tangent where I talk about use sort of startup pitches all the time, but you'll have a bit of a different approach. But your value proposition can remain, because they need to understand the value that you're bringing to customers and what it is you're doing. So hopefully that helps, Melvin. And good luck with your pitches if you are going for investment and funding as well. Wendy, I think I saw your one. So we provide coaching and AI brain workouts for customers so they can get better cognitive skills for the future world of work. Nice. Do you know what? You could probably get to the point a little bit quicker. So the brain workouts thing is what really like fascinates me. I want to know what these brain workouts are. The fact that it's AI, that could be relevant depending on who you're pitching to or who you're contacting. That could be interesting. So we provide AI brain workouts. Immediately, I'm like, okay, tell me more. How does this work? What do you mean? How are you using AI to work out my brain? For customers, again, can you get specific? Who's the customer? So is it directors? Is it senior leaders? It might be a breadth of people, but have tailored value proposition statements for them, so that they can get better cognitive skills for the future world of work. Or it might be so that they're better prepared for the future world of work, so that they're I'm just thinking of other words, like they're better prepared, or they are better equipped, they are more efficient, more effective, more impactful in their work. Something around that side might resonate a little bit more as well. Vic, what would be your top tips for getting the whole team behind your value proposition? Great question. So now it depends the type of team that you have and how many are in there, but I would encourage, and I've worked with other teams that have done a similar exercise for everyone to do as well. So you're actually bringing everyone into the value proposition. So depending on how long people have been working in that team, I mean, everyone's going to have a bit of a different view, but actually getting your team members to give you the insights of what it is, what do you see is the big value that we offer our clients? What is it that makes us stand out from competitors? How is it that our product, our service actually makes someone's life better? And you can almost do this as a group, depending on how much time that you've got. But it could just be in your next team meeting. We're going to do something a bit different. I want to get everyone to take part in this activity because we're starting to really make sure that we're all aligned with the value proposition that we're putting out there. So that's one way that you could do it, because then everyone feels like they've actually contributed to it and they're more likely to get behind something that they've contributed to. If not, and you're really clear with what that value proposition is and there's not really any need for that, then I'd still try to bring everyone in to say, look, we've got this value proposition. We're really clear on what it is that we're doing. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page with it as well. So there's a sense of getting feedback from that, or it's a sense of justifying and educating them on what that looks like and why this value proposition is the one that you're going with. So just a couple of examples there, Vic. Again, depends on the type of business, how big the team is, how much time you've got. But there might be a way that you can actually involve the team in that value proposition, or at least get some feedback and really kind of show them, look, this is why we do what we do. We appreciate, you know, you're turning up every day, you're putting a lot into this business. We actually want to make you more part of this wider vision. And this is where our value proposition comes in, and we'd love to share it with you. So that's where I think that would feel like it's a bit more of a joined up approach, and that could work as well. Awesome. Wendy, you've got an updated one for us. We provide AI brain workouts for business managers so they're better equipped with better cognitive skills for the future. Yeah, or better equipped for the future, or you take that out, so better, they have stronger cognitive skills for the future. I think cognitive skills are interesting because it could err on the side of jargon to an extent, that we kind of think, okay, cognitive skills, we kind of know it's about thinking, it's about the brain. But is there something you can simplify even more, that we can think better, we can act better, we can be more efficient or more effective? That might be something to think about as well. So I'm really sort of pushing that simplicity and getting rid of any sort of jargon or things that might not land straight away. The AI brain workouts, love it. Business managers love it. But maybe there's an element that you can go down a bit there as well. Claire, we've got a fingers crossed, been listening and amending to make sure it's simple, specific and compelling. Okay, let's see. We provide coaching and training for leaders so they can innovate, implement ideas and take action with positive impact. Like it. So really clear in terms of who it is that you're after. I mean, in terms of leaders, assuming there's, you know, business leaders, that could be leaders in sort of any organization, but it's still specific enough. Coaching and training, I almost want to know what type of coaching and training it is. So is it could be generic, but is it business coaching? Is it skills training in a particular area? So we provide coaching and training for leaders great, but I feel like there could be a bit more specific there as well, so they can innovate, implement ideas, and take action with positive impact. Again, the rule of 3 that you've used there is really nice. That often comes up a lot in sort of sales techniques, like the rule of 3: innovate, implement ideas, and take action with positive impact. I feel like we could strip it back a little bit more. I want to know what type of coaching and training it is. The leaders part is fine, but that outcome, it could be that you almost choose something different so that they can take action with positive impact, so that they can take action with maximum impact. Like almost like you want to get to that outcome, that end goal. Like, how can you maximize this for them? What do leaders really care about? And really getting in their shoes to think what's going to relate most to them. And hopefully that works quite well. I'm going to, again, pause a couple of more minutes to get your questions in if you want to, but hopefully that's given you some ideas of what you can take away from today. But just in case there's any final questions, I'll just give it a bit of a pause there, Drew, just so we don't miss any.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's great to see how thought-provoking it is. Again, coming back to that simplicity, the Wendy, Claire, just making those fine tweaks, those refinements to where you were at the beginning this morning, at the beginning of this morning's session, to where your value proposition lands now. It's really interesting to see that how that simplicity really does make an impact to specific audiences and things like that, and who your target market is. So really, really great stuff. So yeah, we've got a few more minutes, guys, if you want to chip in with any final questions whilst you are still thinking of those questions and things like that. Just a couple of dates for the diary. Our next webinar session, our CPD community session, is on the Monday, the 30th of October. It is in collaboration with Target Internet, latest trends in digital and what they mean for learning and development. Stick that in the diary for Monday, the 30th of October. And of course, we've got the National Sales Conference on November the 23rd. Is it, Jenna?
Yeah.
Jenna's there. We've got loads of great speakers there as well. I think, is Nigel Risner there as well, Jenna? Is he?
I believe so. The zoo is coming out. I've seen that and I've spied that on some of the posts as well. But yeah, if anyone sort of hasn't been before and are interested, yeah, please do check it out. There's so much information online, and you'll follow the National Sales Conference on LinkedIn and you'll get all of the updates there. But definitely one I'd recommend reaching out to. And also, I'm going to be following on from a lot of this as well. So really please, that STAR technique that I've mentioned, this was just a snapshot. That will be coming up there as well. And I think Steve's just popped into the chat. There's a 20% discount for CPDSO members as well. So that's awesome, and all the more reason to get involved with it as well.
Excellent stuff. And just on that, Steve, hi, sorry, I saw you jump in earlier this morning. Sorry, Steve from the National Sales Conference. If any of our CPDSO members want to take advantage of the discount, how do they do that? Is there a code we give them at checkout, or how does that work, Steve?
Cool. Hi there, Drew. Thanks so much for the plug there. I've just literally dropped in a URL link in the chat function, but if you use CPDSO 20, that will give you the 20% discount.
Excellent.
Go.
Thanks, Steve.
Again. Stuff. Brilliant session, Jenna. Thank you, Drew.
Excellent stuff. So yeah, I think there it is in the chat, the link and the discount code. If you've never been, I do recommend it. I was there last year with the CPD Zoo, as you said, Jenna, and everybody else. Some really good high value content, some great speakers, and as Jenna's there mentioned, unpacking some of the stuff that Jenna's touched on today. So if you can, get it in the diary, 23rd of November. I think that is all of our questions. Thank you for everybody who has attended. I know some people had to drop off throughout, but yes, if you want to revisit any of this, the video will be shared on our YouTube channel. And as Jenna said, we'll share the slides as part of that as well. But Jenna, thank you so much for everything that you've shared. We'll be seeing you in November, and everybody else here. Thank you for attending. Have a great day. Have a great week, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.